What's going on, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well today. And there was a little bit of a story that came out earlier today, courtesy of Greg Bell of Seattle, that caught my attention a little bit. And I understand that this doesn't really affect anything with the current Seahawks or the future Seahawks. This is more of a in hindsight kind of thing. But I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about it anyway, because I did find it interesting and maybe it helps explain some things. So earlier today, we got an article on the News Tribune from Greg Bell, who is one of the Seahawks beat writers that I follow and pay attention to. And that's one thing I want to everyone to keep in mind here as we talk about this. This is not coming from Dove Kleiman. This is not coming from Ari Mirnov. This is not coming from NFL rumors. This is not coming from some source where it's not really all that worth listening to. This is coming from somebody with a good amount of credibility who I don't think would be saying things like this unless they had a good reason to believe it. Now, I know that Sleeper Seahawks is the tweet I have on screen, but they're sourcing Greg Bell. The actual article itself is here. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole article, of course. If you want to go, then you can easily find the article. But just to kind of recap the part that caught my attention here, this tweet kind of sums it up. According to Greg Bell, Ken Walker was privately irked by his job share with Zach Charbonnet. And if you read the whole article, you'll see what that means. And by the way, I guess this article was actually posted some time ago, but it didn't really get traction until today, to my knowledge. I hadn't heard anything about it until today. So I had no awareness of such a story being put out there, but basically the general idea is that Walker did not appreciate the fact that he was in a basically even split share of action with Zach Charbonnet. I think Walker got the ball a little bit more, but Charbonnet actually played more snaps. Charbonnet was on the field for 49 of our regular season snaps, and Walker was on the field for 47 of them. So it was a thing where Charbonnet would be on the field for third downs more, he would be on the field for pass blocking more, and because of that, even though he missed one game, he was still on the field more than Walker, even though Walker was getting the ball more, and Walker was also, getting more yards. It was a relatively even split, and according to this report, Walker didn't like that. And I just wanna talk about this a little bit because maybe this explains a little bit of why he's not here anymore. Now, I believe that if this team had offered him as much money or more money than the Chiefs did, he'd probably still be here, but maybe this is part of the reason why he didn't have a lot of loyalty. I don't know. If there's one thing that I don't like, and this goes for most fan bases, so I'm not specifically calling out Seahawks fans, I don't like sour grapes, and I don't like speaking poorly of our players after they leave. It's something that I think every fan base does to some extent, but I see it a lot with Seahawks fans, and I don't like it, especially the players who did good stuff for us and helped us win games. And in the case of Ken Walker, that's certainly the case. So when Walker left and he made one or two comments that people didn't like, and people were starting to kind of mouth off a little bit, I didn't like it. And I'm not going to back off from that philosophy. This guy won Super Bowl MVP for the Seahawks. Not even a month and a half ago. So there's no universe where I'm going to sit here and act like, well, I don't like the guy now, or I don't appreciate what he did because he's got a little bit of an axe to grind. So that's not what this is about. But I did find this to be interesting because unlike some instances where this comes up, I really struggle to see it the way of the player. I really struggle to see it from Ken Walker's perspective here. If his beef was he didn't get to play enough, he didn't get the ball enough, and ultimately, I think one of the things referenced in the article was he didn't like not getting touchdowns because Charbonnet was getting the touchdowns because he was more of the goal line back. I'm really struggling to see it Ken Walker's way, and maybe part of being a really good NFL player is to be a little bit irrational and be a little bit unreasonable about yourself. When you are a good player, you feel like you're a great player. When you're a great player, you feel like you're the best player in the league, maybe. But I gotta admit, if this is the case, And I'm not here to dump on him because at the end of the day, he's still been a great Seahawk and he's helped us win a Super Bowl now. That is a little bit disappointing to me because ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a team sport and he was part of a team. And I want to reiterate here, based on the article, I don't think this is just random speculation. I don't think this is just pot stirring. I think this is probably true. I think he was irked by the job share with Charbonnet. I think he was annoyed that he didn't get to play more. And I think that there is clearly reason, good reason, that is, to believe that Greg Bell knows what's up here. So we've been over this before. Ken Walker is not as good as Saquon Barkley. He's not as good as prime Christian McCaffrey. He's not as good as Jonathan Taylor. He's not as good as those players. Maybe in his mind he is, but let's be real here. As fans, we can be objective here. And I said this when he was here, so I'm not just saying this because he's not here anymore. He's not on their level. He's not as good as those players. And there are a few different reasons why that is, but the primary reason is that he cannot take on the workload of those guys. Like, I have a hard time seeing things this way. I'm looking at the season that Ken Walker just had. All right, here's his game logs, and I know it's a little bit small on screen here, but most of you guys remember these games anyway. They just happened not that long ago. You had the 2 games where Walker basically did nothing at the end of the year, early December, against the Falcons and Colts. So you had those 2 games, Falcons and Colts. He did nothing. He gave you nothing. He was pretty bad. Let's just call a spade a spade. He was bad. But after that point, the second half of December, going into January, and then spilling a little bit into February, he played the best football of his life. He was excellent against the Rams in that overtime win. He was our best player for a vast majority of that game, had over 160 yards and a touchdown, averaged what? What are we talking about here? Over 10 yards a touch. And without him, there's no way that game is even close at the end. And yeah, the Panthers game, okay, he didn't have a very good game against the Panthers. Okay, put that in there, but then he was really good against the Niners, gave you 130 yards from scrimmage. Niners again the next week, he gave you almost 150 yards and 3 touchdowns from scrimmage. Yeah, the Rams game wasn't great, but he still had over 100 yards, and he was still crucial in that game, even though the numbers weren't there. And then, of course, the Super Bowl, 160 yards, Super Bowl MVP. Does any of this happen if he's not paced gradually and appropriately earlier in the season, where you have these games where he gets like 10 carries, 13 carries, 11 carries, 14 carries, a handful of catches per game, sometimes maybe throw in 1 or 2 catches? Does any of the stuff that happened at the end in those really 5 games that we're talking about here, those 5, the most important 5 games of the season, Rams, Niners, Niners, Rams, Super Bowl against the Patriots, those are the 5 most important games of the season by any reasonable metric. If we don't win all 5 of those games, we either definitely don't win the Super Bowl or we almost certainly don't win the Super Bowl. And Walker was anywhere from very good to elite in all of them. And that's why he got paid. Make no mistake, if Walker played the same way that he played in those games, the way he played in earlier games where it was very up and down and inconsistent and just kind of okay and not big volume, not a lot of touches, is there any way in the universe that he's getting $43 million from the Kansas City Chiefs? I think the answer is clearly no. He'd be lucky to get 10 million. That's the level that he was playing at before the end of season run. Because we know what happens to Ken Walker when he gets a bigger workload. We have a copious amount of evidence for it. The first 3 years of his career, he missed a total of 10 games, including pretty much the entire end of the season in 2024, last year, the year before this season. And what happened? He got the ball too much in a rapid period of time. He was on the field too much in short periods of time. 2022, he gets to 250 touches. 2023, he gets to 250 touches. Last year, he doesn't even get there because he gets hurt so early, but he gets to 200 touches. This last year, 17 games, but his touches stay about where they've been in some of the previous seasons where he played in fewer games, about 250 touches. and he's the most efficient he's ever been. I know he's not getting into the end zone as much, but he is the most effective player that he's ever been. And that wasn't necessarily apparent until the end of the year when he got more volume. I understand that, but he doesn't get to that point if we do not pace him during the regular season. And yes, that makes him not as good as some of these other elite running backs, but it's not like we came up with this philosophy out of nowhere. We did it because we used him, we had him for the previous 3 seasons, and we saw the issues. So I cannot really see it this way, and I'm not dogging on him for feeling this way. I'm sure that a player like Ken Walker feels like he is as good as Saquon Barkley, but if this is what led to a little bit of a divorce here, then it's really hard for me to feel any regrets. This is Ken Walker. You are best off using him like this and giving him the ball 10 to 12 times a game in a lot of the early games, like we did. Like you look at these early season games, 20 carries at most. Quite a few games he had like 11 touches. That's how you get to a point where he can get 29 touches in the Super Bowl, where he can get 23 touches in the NFC Championship game, or 22 touches in the divisional round. And you don't get there without Charbonnet getting to take a big load. So this is going to be an instance where I'm not dogging on the player for feeling this way because, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with a very good player feeling like he's an elite player. But if this led to some kind of bad blood, then it's tough for me to see things from the player's perspective. All right, I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and more videos tomorrow, but what do you guys think? Let me know what you guys think about this. I know he's better than Charbonnet, but this was the way to play it, and it worked out for everybody, including Ken Walker.